Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the rebuilding of the C6 Ford transmission for the Ford service truck for the channel. I realized that it's actually already rebuilt right now. I had to re-record the intro because I realized this episode's over 2 hours long. I did put quick links down below, or timestamps if you guys want to jump to a specific item, if you will. This video is entertainment purposes only, but if you were to tear apart your C6 transmission, hopefully this will shed some light as to what you might be in for. So let's buckle up. Let's go ahead and see what it took to get this thing rebuilt. When you are rebuilding transmissions, do not use the red rags. You want to use the blue shop towels, or your flavor that you have that is lint free. These will drop lint everywhere, and then it gets in the oil passages and starts to plug stuff up, and weird things start to happen. Stick with the lint free shop towels. Alright, step one. We're going to put the seal on the shift linkage on the transmission housing first. I have wetted down the seal with automatic transmission fluid. Go ahead and do a little bit on this side too. Make sure you get this right side in. The groove side goes into the transmission housing, like thusly. And you might just be able to squeeze it in there with your bare hand. There you go. Looks like it's fully seated. Excellent. Next, we'll go ahead and reinstall the bushings for our output shaft. This size is just smaller than the diameter of our aluminum housing. Excellent. Next, we'll go ahead and put our parking Pawl assembly back on. Go ahead and lube up our pin. I do recommend, if you're building transmissions, get one of these food squeeze bottles, because you'll be pouring it on bearings and bushings. Helps to keep it contained. Okay. There we go. Okay. Looks good to me. Make sure this is the external part of the linkage. There is an O-ring here. Make sure you get that little one out and replace it with a new one. I'll go ahead and put the new one in. There we go. Looks alright. Use the rest of the lube that up. Okay. Inside linkage next. Fun tip. Those notches you see there is what you feel on your shifter. For those of you who haven't seen the side of automatic before, you can hold it still long enough to get the bolt going, which I won't be able to. This is kind of a two-handed job. Don't get frustrated, just take your time. There we go. So now we should have There we go. There's all of our gears. Next, your kick down here. Lever. Just like that. We'll go ahead and put our kick lever down, our manual kick lever down. This is the lever where if you push down on the accelerator all the way to the floor, this manually will kick it down in the next gear, but in my opinion, I'm probably never going to use it. But we'll use it as a placeholder. Now, when you're installing this particular lever, your sensor, your gear selection sensor switch, is right here. But I don't want to install that right now because there's going to be wires and everything dangling about so I'll hold off on that gear switch for now. Might pick up a new one since I'm out and about. And we'll just put the bracket back on here to keep things nice and tidy on the bench. There we go. All right. So here's a good tip for everyone. Before you put the new seals on your piston, dry fit it into the case. And notice where that piston bottoms out at. Right, or mark it. What you got? Whatever you got to do. How about there? This marker doesn't work. I need my chemical marker, but I don't know where it's at. Anyways, just make notes of where the bottom of the piston is in relationship to the case, because you're going to be compressing some springs down. So you want to make sure you can dry fit your piston without O-rings, and you can see where it's supposed to be once you get those O-rings installed. So it looks like mine, the piston is pretty much flush with the bottom of that taper. So either mark it or make a note, mental note, of where the bottom end of that piston is, because you need to shove that piston all the way down and bottom it out. Let's go ahead and pull our piston out and install those O-rings now. I think I picked the right size. Yes. Okay, of course with the excess oil, make sure you get the outside of it all nice and just like you would an oil filter gasket. Okay. Go ahead and get the inner one. That is the right size because it is seated in there nicely. Flush. Alright. What I'll do is I'll sprinkle some lovely oil down here. And oil up the hub where the inner side of the piston runs on, as well as the outside mating surface. Don't be shy with the oil. Do take note, this is the newer style piston. The older style had a check ball valve that you need to have it orientated correctly. I think that check ball valve is in the 6 o'clock or 12 o'clock position. I can't quite remember. It's to help dampen the slamming into reverse gear when at idle, or at least a sharp reverse if I remember right. This is the newer style. This is an 86, so we had no check ball. So you just go ahead and just put it in there. No particular orientation for this late model style. Just go ahead and give it a nice gentle rotate. It should just ever so slightly and then start to drop down. There we go. And of course, we'll always check the piston. You can actually air check it when we get it all assembled. You can hear it clunking, which we'll do that later. So now we're going to go ahead and install our one-way clutch hub. If you guys are ever curious about this little bugger, what it goes to, that's what the one-way clutch is. It goes in right through here. This doesn't get assembled till later, but you put it in pretty much at the beginning of the rebuild process. Make sure that thing's square, properly seated. Put some oil before you drop it down if you have to. You should be able to push all the way down and turn it, so you know it's not bound up on any one side. It's a very tight tolerance, or fairly tight tolerance. There you go. 18 to 25 foot-pounds. Yeah, I think that's what I got this thing set at. Now we'll go ahead and install our piston return spring. And this is the part where I have to compress it down in order to get that snap ring at the very bottom of our inner race groove. Kind of hard to explain, I'll just attempt to show you guys. This is a spring compressor tool. This is the backing. Screw it down. This mates up against the back end of the housing, and as we compress it with a nut, it walks like this, and it'll compress the spring on this side. You can buy these all over the place. eBay, Amazon, if you are so inclined. Okay, should be about like this. Got drawn up tight, or taut. Make sure when you're doing this, you keep your, I don't know, compression forks or whatever you want to call it, away from where you're going to put that snap ring, so you actually have room to put the snap ring on. Here's a overview shot. So when you guys are putting your snap rings in, make sure you push your forks, or I don't know, your compression forks or whatever you call them, out further enough away from the hub that you can actually get your snap ring in there. As we compress it, you'll see this go down further till eventually we'll be able to see where we're supposed to put that snap ring at. And I think we are there. Well, no. A little bit more, I guess. There we go. Perfect. Just look on your snap ring, make sure it's even on all sides. It'll look like it is fully seated. Alright, and go ahead and just back it out. And there you go. One reverse piston return spring assembly locked in. Next we're going to go ahead and put our parking gear in. Before you do that, make sure you put your thrust bearing in there. This is another popular upgrade when you're quote-unquote rollerizing your C6. Basically, you're replacing every single single one of these things with a needle bearing. There is a parking gear kit that comes with it. Basically, all they do is they shave this part down, and then they put a needle bearing, which is thicker, instead of a thrust bearing, if you will, right here. Comes as a kit. We're not going to do that. As you can see, here's the old one. You can see how even a low mileage transmission, I don't know, maybe on 100,000, has already scored it up there a little bit. So if you want to, it's a good popular upgrade. I'm going to bypass that. This is just for a hobby for the YouTube channel. This part where it's going to get rotated, notice the little veins? Those are to hold oil. This is nothing on the back, which means that's the stationary piece. So this is the movement side, if you will. Okay, so grab your parking gear, put it in your distributor housing at the same time. I found that to be the easiest. Rotate it. Go ahead and maybe put a little bit of oil on your aluminum tubes there to help get everything situated. Oh yeah, this is going to take a hot minute. Probably go ahead and run some oil around the outside of our distributor housing just to lube it up and make it pop in a little bit easier. I'm going to recommend doing this crisscross to make sure everything halfway mounts flushly. Halfway mountly flushes. Wow. I think I need to do a jump cut, get some sleep, and come back. Next, we're going to prep our output shaft to go back in. Go ahead and pull our seals off, our distribution, where the distribution sleeve goes. This one's a cast iron on this one. There we go. If you're good enough, you can just break it off. That just slides right off. Yeah, there's teeth in there. You just have to line it up just right. But it will come off without much fuss when you get it aligned. Next, we're going to go ahead and take our governor off. There's really no modifications we're going to do or anything. This is simply remove, set everything out, clean it up in the solvent tank, then simply reassemble it. In case there's any junk or whatnot in there, this will clean it up nicely. Okay. Basically, it's just a very, very cute minor valve body in there. Nothing terribly special. So to disassemble your governor further, all you gotta do is get the snap rings off here on this side. Maybe. Like thusly. Careful, this thing's spring loaded, so don't let the parts go flying. So you got one snap ring, cover, spring, and the actual, I don't know, valve body assembly itself. Should pop out here with minimal effort. There we go. Just like that. That's one half. The other half looks like we got a little clip here. Go ahead and take that clip out. Spring. And the other side of the valve body. Or valve actuator. I'm not sure what you call this bugger. There you go. So now you just have one aluminum housing ready for the wash. So the last part is you can actually get your governor housing off of here. All there is you just made messies. I don't know if it's really necessary to do this. A parts washer should clean it all up. Those are pretty big oil passage holes, but we'll try to somewhat do this correctly. Okay. Snap ring is somewhat loose now. Out of its groove. Pry it loose here. Alright. Snap ring is off. Took me a fair bit to get it off, but picking a screwdriver, you can do it. And then our back end of our housing is off. Excellent. I'm going to go ahead and wash all the components up, and we'll be right back with the assembly process of the output shaft. Okay, let's go ahead and reassemble it. Let's see here. Head and put this guy on first. Okay, that's not right, that's backwards. That might be a little bit more righter. Snap ring. Actually, before I go any further, I'm going to put a little bit of lubrication on these, on the governor's teeth right here. There we go. There we go. Okay. Now go ahead. Put your snap ring back on. There we go. Snap ring's on. Housing is nice and tight. Alright, let's go ahead and reassemble our governor. Get some lube. Go ahead and put that, this side back on. Spring. This might be a little bit tricky, but we'll see what we can do here. Put the retainer clip, or whatever you want to call it, back on. Call it retainer clip. Make sure that spring is in the direct center of that hole. That's all nice and tight now. Go ahead and we'll hit up our other side now. I'll go ahead and reassemble the other side. Then our spring for that. And then our little retainer cup, whatever you want to call it. Retainer disc? Retainer cover. We'll go with retainer cover. That sounds like a good accurate description. And somehow try to put that snap ring back in there. Oh, except my transmission's backwards on my snap ring pliers. There we go. I think we got it. Yeah. There we go. Now the spring is center. Should go down nice and easily without much fuss. Excellent. Let's go ahead and bolt it back up to our back of our governor housing now. We'll go ahead and put a little bit more oil in there just for funsies. You can never have too much lubrication. Okay. Get our bolts and button it down. Dealing with aluminum, I like to do a crisscross pattern, just like you do a tire when you're bolting it down. Now before you throw the shaft back in, remember, we got some seals we need to install new ones on. Now I will admit, this next part did kerfluddle me a little bit. Our original, we had one cast iron spring, but the other one are like rubber, like, I don't know, Teflon, I'm not sure. However, all I got was all cast iron for our rings here, seal rings if you want to call them that. Obviously O-rings don't go on here because this is a square bore and O-rings are round. So obviously they want us to put the square ones in. There's a different size. This C6 is, you know, this is the transmission kit, rebuild kit that I bought. The transmission rebuild kit that I had bought only contains the cast iron type, and since the first one's cast iron type, must be perfectly safe to put all three cast irons in there instead. What I'm probably going to do is go ahead and take the first one that snapped in and just move it all the way over, because I don't think I can get the other snap rings over this snap ring without breaking them. Remember, this is cast iron. These are actually pretty fragile. There we go. 1 out of 3 installed. Okay, 2 out of 3. And 3 out of 3. Make sure you, of course, oil your distribution case there. All nice and good. And of course, sprinkle some more on here if you desire. Again, does not hurt anything whatsoever. Just makes a mess on the floor. Alright, let's go ahead and put it back in the case. It's a little bit of finessing. It should just clunk into place. Again, don't force anything. There we go. Nice and easy. Spin it a little bit, walk it around. And I forgot to put the rubber piece back on. Let's go ahead and slip that right back on. There we go. Excellent. Next, we're going to go ahead and put the tail housing on, but before we put the tail housing on, we've got to refurbish the tail housing. Remove your output shaft seal. Oh, this is going to be fun. Yeah, right. So, I can't get this seal out whatsoever. My seal puller just not doing it. I've tried to mangle it, tried to pry it outwards, inwards, every which way, and it just does not want to come off. So, what we're going to do is take it from a 1 all the way up to 11. Hello. It's nice, easy flame. That's all we needed. So what I did is I made a perfect incision right here to pull the seal out. So now we should just be able to wheel it out just like that. There you go. There's the old seal. So how I was able to extract this so cleanly without damaging the aluminum? Well, number 1, don't put a lot of heat on the aluminum. Number 2, aluminum is non-magnetic. The seal core is made of mild steel, hence why you can use an oxygen acetylene torch on this and to basically cut the old seal out without damaging the aluminum whatsoever. Excellent. Now, if you don't have a cutting torch like I do, it's not a big problem. I might suggest a butane torch. So if you had your butane torch, in theory, what I think I would have done is I heated it up to its cherry red, quick as practicable, without heating the aluminum up, and then simply, maybe peeling it back or mauling it back or getting a pick, perhaps, and persuade it out. That could be another option for you. That probably would work. Just make sure you don't heat up your aluminum housing too much. Try to keep the heat on the seal, not on the aluminum casing. So, seal's extracted. Let's go ahead and push the old bushing out. Again, paying attention to our bushing depth. It is 100% flush with the aluminum. Hey! Sounds like we're through. Oh boy. My driver just barely fits in there. Come on. Well, there's the old bushing. Lovely. Doesn't look all that bad, in all honesty. Looks alright. Probably could reuse it again, but we got new ones with the new rebuild kit. We'll just replace it. Okay. How am I going to get this out of here? Oh, I'll just push it out then. Whatever. There we go. That works. Very nice. I'm going to go ahead and give this a bath and prep this to put a new bushing and a new seal in.
Switch to our actual bushing size now. Okay, that looks good. Now we'll go ahead and put our seal on. Mostly on. All right. Seal is officially in place. And there you have it. We'll go ahead and put our tail housing on now. Before I torched it, I did remove the speedometer gear drive because it's plastic. Didn't want that to melt. I need to compare it with the service truck and make sure it's the right set of teeth. So we'll do that later. We'll just leave this empty for now. Back to the transmission. Now, if you notice, our tail shaft is, or output shaft, same difference, I guess, is actually sticking out well beyond the housing, and it wasn't like that before. Well, the reason why the old seal had like a dust boot on here that you see me rip off just a bit ago. This is a new style seal. It'd be kind of nice if I actually had the older dust boot on there, but that's where the drive shaft input's going to be, and I'll just keep the spray inside the tail housing and lubricate the splines on the output shaft, but keep everything in there. So if you're wondering why it looks funky instead of being flush, it's actually sticking out. Different, newer style, or different style. No, this way. What? What? No, stay. No, why are you being this way? Oh, is it backwards? Almost forgot to do one crucial thing. Oil that bushing up. There we go. Now we can put the tail housing on. All right. Tail housing assembly on. Next will be reinstalling the servo. Except we're going to pop the piston out and replace a couple of seals first. Right. Handy dandy little pick. Start with the easy bit. Go ahead and remove it. Just like that. Okay. Next, you will need compressed air to pop this piston out, just like we did with the low reverse clutch. And that port is right here. Like that. So for your rod assembly, it's all one cast piece. You can't replace this. They say to inspect the lip. If it looks damaged, replace it. Let me go ahead and run this through the solvent tank, and we'll take a little bit of a closer look. Alright, one clean cover, one clean piston rod assembly, and one spring. So basically what you're looking for here is damage to your seal. I think that it's also in here. You're also looking for damage, splitting, or just deformation. This looks good. I will say, if you're in this deep repairing a transmission, just get yourself a new assembly. I forgot to order mine. I completely forgot about this little bugger. So we're gonna risk it. Yeah, no, scratch that. We are going to put a brand new servo in there. One of the things about editing and recording a video mid-production, you can go ahead and stop it and gather some more parts and throw it back all together. All servos are not the same for these Fords. You'll find one big letter stamped here on your servo cover. Make sure you follow that. Mine's an S servo. Supposedly this is a new S servo. We're going to go ahead and install it. We probably could have gotten away with the old one. But if it's an original, it's 30 plus years old. And the rubber eventually will deteriorate after time. And it's just easier. It's like 20, 30 bucks. It's easier just to do it outside of the pickup. Go ahead and lube up the bores. That's the outer side, and of course the inner bore here. Go ahead and make sure it's 100% all lubed up nicely. Of course, you can always go ahead and get this 100% lubricated as well. There we go. And go ahead and just pop it right back in. Spring on. Bolts. And make sure you put your identification tag back on if you have it. Make sure to also lube up your inside of your bore on your transmission for your servo cover. It'll work. It'll definitely help. Should go in fairly smoothly. If we're forcing it too hard, probably don't beat it with a hammer. Pull it out, put some more lubrication on it, have a little gander, and try it again. It should go in by hand, not by hammering down on it. Okay, because this cover is under pressure when that second band is applied, or when that intermediate band is applied in second gear, you want to, I would strongly suggest you actually torque these down to specs. 14 to 20 foot-pounds. That's what I got set here. First of all, I would suggest that you just hand crank these down taut in a star pattern. Torqued. Servo has been installed. So now we're going to be working on our low reverse clutch hub, which is contains our one-way clutch assembly. We're going to remove and replace. The new style, oddly, has one plastic cage that does not require any snap rings. Oh, I just love snap rings. They're so much fun. One snap ring. I think, yes, it will come out. That's why they upgraded. Everything's caged. So that guy comes off, and then you got all your rollers, but I think I'm just going to try to attempt to pull it out all at once. And it might, oh, it won't make a mess. Excellent. So that is the old style where it'll immediately fall apart. Which, I mean, it's alright. But newer is better. Now I'm going to go wash this up in the solvent tank right quick, and we'll go ahead and reinstall this right after. Yeah, these are always fun to put back together if you're using this original style. Lots of transmission reassembly gel. Now remove your other inner snap ring. The old style has two of them, one on each side. There we go. So both snap rings out of the hub. Discard. You will not need those if you're doing this upgrade. Okay. So now that we have a nice clean hub from the solvent tank, all the old stuff's out, we will drop in our new roller clutch. Now, you can't mess this up. This thing only goes in one way. If you look at these teeth, they're not even. They got a very specific pattern that goes only one way. And this guy knows the way. Now, let's go ahead and get some assembly lube right quick. Go ahead and lube up our inner race. On the hub side, at least. Okay, so that's all lubricated now. Go ahead and give this a good razzle dazzle there. Okay, and as you can see, it will not go in this way. It can only go in one way. they made this design. they had people with me in mind that know they can royally mess that up. Putting the one-way clutch in backwards, that would be not right. So I just gently pressed it, and then it pops. And there you go. You do not need your snap rings anymore because you cannot actually get your snap rings in that groove. Alright. So your clutch hub, this race, where the rollers are, ride on this piece right here. Go ahead and take some oil here. I got some oil inside the case. Just go ahead and lube that race up and go ahead and install it. There we go. It's a pretty precise fit, but it should fit. Just gently drop it in by hand. No force necessary. As you can see, we can push on one side, it's locked. Pull on the other side, rotates freely. Our one-way clutch works. So now that we've got the low reverse clutch hub in here, now we're going to go ahead and install our first clutch packs that go right in here. Prepping your clutch plates for installation. Something that's a little bit controversial now. My book states, and I agree with it, if you're using new composites and plates, also known as friction discs, you need to soak them in ATF for 15 minutes before installing these. Now, some people on the forum like to soak them overnight, 24 hours. My instructors in school did that, told us to soak them overnight. I disagree with that. I've been able to get away with 15 minutes just fine. And even if you pull them out, they're still soaking wet and they're still going to soak and seep, and it's going to be days or weeks before I even get that transmission installed. So they're going to be plenty well wet when I go and fire it up. Now, if you guys want in the comments down below, write, your experiences. If you don't believe it, that's right. That's fine. Go ahead, voice your opinion. That's just fine. I've always been able to get away with 15 minutes, no problem. Now, when you put these in here, don't stack them in like a pile like that. Spread them out like this. That way they all get nice and wet. There you go. And then start your timer, and we'll be right back when those are soaked. Ready to go. The clutch plates, friction plates rather, have been soaking for a good 20 some odd minutes. If you have a good rebuild kit, it should come with new steels as well. The old stack right here, you will need to reuse two of them. First of all would be the pressure plate. Basically, that's the topmost where the snap ring sits right above. You can see where the snap ring was sitting. This needs to be cleaned up first. And the very bottom, which is your wave. Now, obviously, this is for the C6 transmission. Just when you're removing stuff and reassembling, just be vigilant on what came out and what needs to go back in. Let's go ahead. I'll get the pressure plate and the wave ring cleaned up, and we'll go ahead and reinstall our clutch pack. So we're going to go ahead and install our wave spring, or wave washer. I can't remember what they call it first. They call it a wave plate. And then one steel plate. I'm also dipping the steels in the Earl, or the oil if you will. Then those teeth have got to be aligned just perfectly. And our last friction. Then you want to drop your pressure plate in on top. And then go get the snap ring and lock her into place. So I tried to put my snap ring in just now and it did not fit in the groove. I put one too many friction plates in. I'll watch the playback. When you are installing it, make sure you get the right plate count right. Mine had 5 in the transmission and the kit comes with 6 of them. Okay. Insert snap ring. If we got our count correctly, it should not give us much fuss. Excellent. Now we can actually air check that clutch pack and see if it works or not. So now we're going to hit our reverse low apply, which is here, which activates that piston when we popped it out. We're going to use that same port, and we should hear a dull funk of sorts, and that'll tell us if that piston's coming up. My air hose stops leaking. Okay, you see that pressure plate expanding? That means our clutch pack is indeed working. That is exactly how the transmission does it, only it does it hydraulically instead of by air. Now we will take our, what's supposed to be the number 9 thrust washer, which in this case we've converted to a roller bearing, matched it with the inner hub race as a kit. Go ahead and oil that up right quick. Oil up the needle bearings. Go ahead and install it. And there's a wavy side here. That goes on the inner hub race side, like that. Alright, I had to tilt the transmission 90 degrees. Had to shove my output shaft in from the tail. Now that ring gear should fit. Needle bearing is still in place. Oh, look at that. Now it fits. Then go ahead and put your small snap ring on top of that. There you are. Alright. Now after about 10 minutes of wrestling with it, because I only have 2 screwdrivers, not special snap ring pliers just for this, snap ring is on. Alright, now for our rear planetary gear set. Now if you notice with this bugger, we only have 3 planetary gears. We're gonna keep this in 3 instead of a 4 or 5. If I remember my powertrain correctly, this planetary set is not used in high gear, your 3rd gear, which is why I'm trying to bulletproof a little bit. And to get a 4 carrier bearing for the whole rear planetary gear sets, it wasn't in the budget, only the forward was. We don't have to worry about bulletproofing this right now. As far as rollarizing the C6s, you can rollerize them. Basically, instead of these thrust bearings, you can have needle bearings. But again, that requires you to upgrade your carrier to a new machined one that has a recess or is machined for a needle bearing. Since we'll be using a stock carrier with the same setup as from the factory, we're just going to go ahead and use our thrust washers. Go ahead and grab your assembly goo, spread it around here. All this does is keeps the thrust bearings from coming apart when you tip it upside down. If you don't have assembly goo, you can just use petroleum oil too. That works fine. Go. Okay. So now our thrust bearings are on the other side. Go ahead and lube up your ring gear, and go ahead and lube up your planetaries as well. Make sure to get in to each of those gears for the needle bearings. Again, too much lubrication is never enough. Can never have too much lubrication in an automatic transmission. Okay. You gotta be patient with this, it'll eventually drop. You just gotta sync it all up. Just take a minute. There we go. Good. Oh, this is my favorite pastime, installing snap rings. Not! So now the rear, basically the rear gear train is in there. Let's go ahead and work on the front gear train. Next item, or items, we're going to be refurbishing our forward clutch assembly. And then after that, it'll be the reverse high drum. Starting with the forward clutch assembly. We've got a few bits and bobs in here we've got to replace. Snap ring comes off. Pressure plate. Clutch plates, frictions, and steels come out next. So it looks like we've got pressure plate, then your friction, which is typical. We have 2, 4. We've got 4 frictions, a wavy disc, and then the back plate, I guess you might call it. Go ahead and set those aside. This one's been in here a little while. There we go. And then your wavy disc comes out. And to get that piston out, we have to find the apply passage. This one's being a little bit more obstinate. There it goes. Well. Alright. And guess what? There's more seals to replace on. So you're going to have a seal here and a seal here to replace. What I'll go ahead and do now is I'll take off all the seals, wash all the hardware components up, and come back when we're ready for reassembly. Go ahead and put our needle bearing back in. Wish my kit came with the new one, it did not, so we have to make do with what we have. Another reason why I decided to build a low mileage donor transmission instead, in case little parts like come up like this and I forgot to order them, if in case my kit didn't come with one, that will be covered. Piston comes next. I'm going to go ahead and put our new O-rings in now. Alright, now we're ready to install our seal. I wanted to do this because in front of you guys, because this is a very specific seal. There is a right way and a wrong way to put this in. It is not a standard O-ring or a square. It's actually tapered. The camera is probably not picking it up that well. But it has a very specific side it has to go on. There's the back side of the piston. Right? That goes in like this. This seal, in case there's somebody else who didn't fail to record it when they undid it, the lip side of the seal basically goes on the back end of that piston. And the theory is the hydraulic oil, your transmission fluid, will come in here, fill that void, and expand outward, creating the seal to push that piston out. The inside seal is just a standard O-ring. There's nothing crazy about that. But you do want to get this seal right, because if you don't, you're going to have big problems trying to get into gear. So basically the cupped side that holds pressure is going to, there we go, if you can maybe see it from up there, you can see how the cupped void side's on this side, because the pressure is going to be coming from here, filling up that void and pushing that seal outward against the drum to seal it. Putting this back in is going to be a bugger. Make sure you do not flip this seal backwards when you put it in. You notice that it's got the beveled end kicked out. Well, to push it down, go slow, finesse it, take your time, don't rip that seal up. It would really stink if you ripped that seal up halfway into installing this thing, you never saw it and went to put the transmission back in, and well, you got gears that disappeared on you. Make sure you lube up your bore inside and outside very thoroughly. And go ahead and wrestle it in there gently. I don't know if you can wrestle stuff gently or not. There we go. That's how you do it. Nice gentle scraping motion without gouging the seal. You just, what I did is I just swept it like this. Nice even sweeps, and then it dropped right in. So there you go. One piston in. Steel ring on there. Then we'll put our bevel spring in there. I think there is a bit of a load tension on that. But now it is installed. Just go slowly, by hand, messing with the disc a little bit. Now we'll go ahead and put our front pressure plate in. Obviously bevel side down to match the bevel on your disc spring. Or disc plate, rather. Wavy plate is in next. Then go ahead and first steel goes in. Then friction. Another steel. Friction, steel, and with my transmission, I have 4 frictions, other pressure plate, and snap ring. There you go. Alright, snap ring's in place. We're almost done. We've got 2 seals in the back. These again had the plastic whatever, just like we had on the tail shaft housing. And I've got cast iron replacements. It's just all that came with the kit, so let's go ahead and take that, I guess. Again, these are cast iron. Be very careful when you're installing them. Don't break them. These are really tiny little buggers. I should note, when you install these, they actually hook together like thusly. There's an ever so tiny hook, if you guys can see that. They actually interlock together like that. To see how there's a lot of slop in there, connect them up, you can take all that slop out. There we go. Now that they're hooked together, very little slop. So there's one complete assembled forward drum, ready to rock and roll. Last thing to check, clearances, your clutch pack clearances. And the way you do that is you push down, put your feeler gauge between the snap ring and the pressure plate. Specs for the forward drum stock are 21 thousandths to 46 thousandths. I'm starting off with the 22 thousandths here. And it goes in a little loose, so we are above minimum spec, so that pleases me very much. Just good. There's no drag on it whatsoever. So let's bump it up to 25 is a nice even number, eh? Just 25 thousandths. Make sure you push down on there to get an accurate reading. That's a little sloppy still. It's not really dragging. That's pretty loose. Let's crank it up to 30 thousandths. Okay, that should be 30 thousandths. There is drag on the feeler gauge. It's probably 31 to 32 thousandths, I would guess. No, it's about right there. I'm going to call it 30 thousandths, which is between 21 thousandths and 46 thousandths, so we're almost right in the middle. Excellent. This clutch is ready to go. Now when we reassemble these, lining up these teeth can be a bugger on the clutch packs. So you may want to, if you feel like you want to, go ahead and line them up at this time. Something like that. So now all the teeth are synced up. It'll make installation a lot better. Alright, now on to the upgrade of the Lincoln Direct Drum. Your high and reverse drum, basically. Now for the direct drum. This is where your reverse comes through, but also your direct. Your third gear comes through, your highway gear. We're going to upgrade it from the Ford factory clutch drum, which has 3 plates from the factory, to the factory Lincoln drum, direct drum, and that contains 4 plates from the factory. Let's go ahead and just take it apart and see at least what kind of a drum we've got at first. Snap ring, of course. Go ahead and take your friction plates out and your pressure plates. Well, of course they won't cooperate. There we go. Empty. Alright, so pressure plate, nothing to worry about there. And oh my goodness. Yeah. We got some burned up clutches. I bought this drum off of eBay. Yeah. So this is what a normal friction plate should look like if you have the grid type. This is a burned up plate. The friction material has been completely wiped clean, and this transmission would have been slipping and you would have no highway gear, which probably explains why it was for sale on eBay. The rear pressure plate, ooh, we got a lot of heat check going on here, and this thing might be warped. I'm not sure. You could put a straight edge on it. I'm gonna have to investigate. Or actually what we could do for the rear pressure plate, so this is what your piston rides upon right here. We can actually probably go ahead and take our, if it's the same thickness, we can take our 3 clutch pack Ford one that we're not using that came from the transmission. I'd just simply throw it in here. We'll take a look into that in a bit. But yeah, this, so whatever transmission this came out of, yeah, it did not have a high gear. It was no highway gear. It was burned up, which is probably why it was for sale. All right, let's go ahead and continue to tear down our drum. Now to continue disassembly, you got a snap ring here you got to remove. But in order to do that, this is actually has springs on it, a return spring. So you actually need to press this down with our little tool we had earlier to get that snap ring off, so we can pop that piston out and get new seals in it. Okay, snap ring is off. There's springs around in here, but they're not in every slot. So when you undo this, make sure it don't go exploding everywhere. If you have a good enough manual for a rebuild, it'll show you where they're supposed to go. Top retainer ring, I guess if you want to call it. You can see our springs are in a collective group. Make sure you don't put them here when you're trying to reassemble, and keep them as a clump just like this. Fortunately, they won't fit. I can't get them to fit in these grooves, so just take a note where those springs are at. Go ahead and remove them. You know, a faster way would just be do this here. Oh, look, that works. Okay, now we just need to pop the piston out. So now we'll just hit the back port, hydraulic port up here with air. That should pop it out. And the piston is now loose. Go ahead and walk it out. There's our piston. There's one of our seals we're going to replace. And there's our drum. Go ahead and take out our bushings. Okay. That one came out very easily. Now to remove this bushing, this is where you may have to have your own way of doing it versus mine. What I found out is that my bushing driver sets, that ones that look like this, I don't have the right size. It's just a little too, there's a 74 millimeter here and I need a 73, and this kit doesn't come with one. So in my particular case, I do have another bushing set. I think, can't remember why I bought it for. Let me show you. It's an ATC kit. I don't know what it is. It says 1001 on there. I don't know if that's the model number, but I do have enough bits and bobs that comes from this kit that I can use just a puller and just pull, or yeah, it's a puller, and just simply pull it out. So that's going to be my method of extracting that bigger bushing in the direct drive drum. Okay, so I found one. It's the number 8 size. And I found that it just fits perfectly in that machined hub. It's a little bit loose, but it should be tight enough. It should be able to extract it with no problem whatsoever. So then I'll do that. Let's see here. I will use that as a puller. We'll pull it this way because it's easier. And then take this, put it here. Oh, let's see. We need the bigger cone. It's just to hold it taut. Washer in there. It's gonna be a bit loosey-goosey till I can get it. Okay. Then we'll use the backside for there. And then we'll use the nut to drive it out. I know I got a crush wrench big enough for that. I don't know where it's at, so we're just gonna use a pipe wrench. Because I like abusing my tools. Okay. Let's see if this works. Oh, they're gonna be fun. Well, hopefully it's mostly extracted. It's got us 3/4 of the way. It's nice when you can extract these bushings the non-violent way. Oh, it's almost there. Let me show you guys what's going on. No? Halfway there? Yeah. Say we're about halfway out. Go ahead and just pile drive that down. Ah, that's pretty easy. Final thing we got to do, take out our inner seal. Usually with pistons, there's an inner and an outer seal. And there's one inner seal. Now we're going to take it to the parts washer. Alright, well, I was playing around with different clutch packs and plates and pressure plates and realized I think if I wanted to do the 5 or 6 clutch packs in the direct drum, your high-speed gear, I think I need a custom machine drum in order to effectively do that. I could put 5 in here, but unfortunately the friction plate will rub up against and slip into the lower part of the ring, the snap ring groove, which would cause your vehicle to get into neutral and burn up clutch plates and all that nasty stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to stick with stock sized thickness clutch plates and steels, and we'll use the stock pressure plate that stacks up on top. And what these will do, even though this is a stock configuration, I have been told, looking at the drag racing forums and stuff, people say that a 4 clutch plate should hold you up to 400 horsepower, which, and we know with our truck, there's no way that stock 460 is going to put 400 horsepower out, but still give a little bit of grabbing power for highway gears. About as far as we can go with the driver. Now we'll just use our extraction tool and use it to reinstall it the rest of the way. Should be right about there. So it looks like, yep, just below the ring groove. It is within specs. Flip it over and don't forget the little one. Right here. Not much effort required for the little one. Just got done washing it again and drying it out. I mean, banging on the wood, I got some stuff on there. Re-cleaned. Ready for some piston seals, of which I need to go collect. Reinstall our piston now. Okay. Piston is in. It's always a good idea to put that piston in before you put the seals in so you know where it bottoms out, so you know you're not pitching anything. Go ahead and put all of our little return springs back in now. There's the last spring. Okay. All we're going to do is put our top end back on, compress it down, put the snap ring on. Alright, compressor tool. Oh, this is going to be loads of fun. Sometimes this ring will get inside of our snap ring groove, so just get your screwdriver and just gently pull a collar over like this. You do have to play a bit of centering shenanigans with this, but it will go. Just be patient, don't force anything. Alright, we're clear of the snap ring groove. Yep. Okay. Snap ring is fully in groove. Go ahead and back it off. Your spring compressor off. This should be the other way. Hello? Go ahead and put our clutch plates in. Regular steel first. This would be the fourth friction. And right on top of that, just put your pressure plate on it. And my pressure plate got stuck. Oh, good grief. Come on. There we go. Thank you. In goes snap ring. Really? I said snap ring goes in. I already do it when there's oil everywhere. There we go. There we go. One rebuilt direct drum. It's apparently leaking and oozing. We'll go ahead and set this aside and get ready to reassemble it with our new gear set. Alrighty, we are ready for the Ford gear set upgrade. This will be the old set. As you can see, we have a 3 Planetary gear set here. The new one we just got has 4 Planetary gear sets.
Helps distribute the load a lot better around the gear. This also newer set, it rollarizes some of the thrust bearings. As you see here, we're getting rid of these. I'm going with awesome needle bearings. Less friction, less drag, more spinny. This is also a wide range ratio kit. So I've got a deeper first gear and a deeper second gear, and I think reverse as well, if I remember right. Basically, I can pull more without it slipping as it gains momentum. Obviously, your third gear, your 1-to-1 ratio, it's still there. That doesn't change. This will just help the truck to launch a lot better when pulling a heavy load or all of my tools. A lot easier and less strain on the drivetrain components. So now we're going to go ahead and assemble all of our forward gear components together. Sun, forward, and direct drum. Squish them all together and then drop it in one big unit into the transmission case. There's always one clutch pack that doesn't want to engage. Typical. Now we'll go ahead and put our needle bearing in here. Thrust washer on here. Oh yeah, I gotta line all these up again. Don't forget your needle bearing. Another bearing. And sun gear. There you go. Your forward gear set is assembled, ready to put back into the case. When reinstalling this, make sure you hold on just to the ring gear. If you hold on to anything up here, all the assembly is going to separate and you have to reassemble it all over again. Just like that. Excellent. Next we'll install our intermediate band. Take note, you can actually get a little bit of a wider band, an extra, oh no, is it 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch extra wide. So that will give you another, I don't know, 10-20% grabbing power surface area. It's always a good upgrade with these. Make sure to soak this band first, of course. Mine's been in the soaker for about half an hour. Okay. Okay. Now, by the book, you torque your adjustment nut down X amount of pounds, you back it off, turn and a half or something like that. My shift kit actually says to adjust this when the transmission is back in the vehicle by way of turning your output shaft to where it just locks up and backs us off 1/4 of a turn. I feel that the shift kit is more scientific
than simply adjusting this to by the factory instructions. So my shift kit said just put it in there nice and taut, just so stuff doesn't flop around and things don't go loose on you when you reinstall it. And we'll actually adjust that intermediate band when it's back in the truck running. Now we're going to rebuild our front pump. We'll go ahead and take the bushings out of here, and there'll be a bushing on the other side. We'll get our blind hole extractor in here and get to work. There's our bushing. There's our bushing. Go ahead and flip it over, and there'll be another bushing in here. There we go. Another bushing. I think there's only 2 of them. Seal number 2 coming off. I believe this is ready for the parts washer. This transmission's been sitting a while. There's a little bit of surface rust right here, but that's just superficial. That'll clean up nicely. And then our actual oil pump itself. Looks like you will have obviously one seal, but there's yet one more bushing you'll have to remove. Gear's look in very good condition. There's some slight scoring on the outside, but it's nothing you can feel. It's nice and smooth. Gears. Okay, so looking at our oil pump gears, they look pretty good. The teeth are in very good condition. You go check it for cracking, pitting, scoring, basically anything that looks off. You might want to look into it. This is a low mileage transmission, so we know that the gears are just fine. So all we're just going to do is put them in the solvent tank, clean them up, and put it back into service. Well, that still came out without a cutting torch. We'll go ahead and drive out our bushing here. I think my driver kit should be able to do that. Before you extract the bearing, note that they punched it here and here to prevent the bearing from spinning. Also, of course, watch for your depth. Old bushing out. This oil pump bushing has got a little bit of wear and tear in it. There's a little side piece, if I can get the camera to. Yeah, there's a nice little darker streak right there, but it doesn't look terrible otherwise. Definitely used. Now to the parts washer. We'll be right back. We are ready to rebuild our pump, or at least refurbish it. With the bushing, there is a half moon piece in your bushing. There should be. Make sure that's facing towards the gear side. I think it's something like that. They say to put it near the oil lube hole, which I believe is what they're talking about right there. Just to ensure that this bushing is lubricated properly. I think other bushings are not so critical, but this one kind of is. So I have my notch right here coming off of this, pretty much this hole right here. So that's the way I put it. When you put this bushing in, you're going to put it 60 to 80 thousandths below this cast piece, so it's going to get oil anyways. Just make sure that the notch is facing the gear side. 70 to 75 thousandths on the depth. That will suffice. Put my gears in now, I guess. There's a mark on the big gear that goes face down. Okay, that action feels good. And the inner gear will also either have a chamfered mark, or I got two small markings right here. Both that and the outer gear, all those markings face down in this direction, so they face towards the front of the pump housing. Just pay attention when you're pulling things apart and putting them back together. I think what I'm going to do next is actually install that seal. Better before I put that shaft back in, or the stator support in. That looks like that's installed. Make sure the seal and the bushing is all nice and lubricated. Oops, forgot to stake my bushing. Yeah, this is always a fun bit. That's good. I think that's torque to specs. Next, we'll go ahead and put our big seal in. We'll install our sealing rings. Remember, these are the cast iron type. Be careful with them. And of course, to make sure to hook them together. Oh, I hate these things. Oh, goodness. There we go. Okay. Two seals rings on now. Go ahead and put our other two bushings in here. We should be done with the pump. One front pump ready for reinstallation. Now we're going to put our front pump on. This is the original selective washer, thrust washer if you will. The new one, it's actually bronze. I'll take bronze over old 1980s plastic any day. So go ahead and we'll get some assembly lube and we'll put our new one on. We'll stake this up. Just like that. Okay. Now, instead of putting the gasket on here, I prefer to put the gasket on the case so I don't have to worry about it rocking around all over. If you want, you can put a little bit of assembly lube on there in case you're concerned about it moving. The original manual says they prefer to make dowels here and here with bolts and guide it all in, but that's just a little too much work. So we're just going to go ahead and put the gasket down here in the case first and put the pump on. So for most of you, your pump will be able to mostly drop in, and you'll have to draw it in the rest of the way with bolts. Mine was a little bit cantankerous because a direct drum bushing is just a little on the taut side. It goes in, but it's a little taut. So mine stuck up about 1 inch out of the case, and I had to gently coax it in with bolts here, here, and here. And all I'm doing is I'm just doing this by hand, like this. Practically no leverage. You should not be cramming this thing in. But at this point, the seal is just above the aluminum housing. So I'm going to go ahead and oil it up to make sure it's all nice and lubed. And then we're going to tighten the front pump the rest of the way down. First way I'm doing this, of course, crisscross pattern is a good pattern to use. (16 to 30 foot-pounds). And input shaft. Even my input shaft's a little stiff. There it goes. Yeah, those bushings are a little taut. Okay. To the valve body now. There's two ways to more or less go about this. If you're just keeping it all stock, then all you can simply do is just gut everything out, spread everything all around, orderly, keep everything in order, wash, clean, put back together again. New gaskets between the valve bodies. No muss, no fuss. I'm putting a shift kit in it. So there'll be a little bit of modifications. There'll be some extra springs and stuff that goes along with modifying it for a firmer shift. So my reassembly is going to be different than other people's. I'm going to be using different components. Let's get to work. Okay, 2 bolts. This side, go and remove them. Whoa! Oops, I probably tried lefty-loosey, I think. Screen looks pretty good. Clunk. No, that's one of the check ball valves. Check balls. Okay. The main portion of the brain, we'll set that aside and we'll disassemble that here in a minute. Go ahead and we'll get our backing plate off first. Okay, one backing plate comes off. Old gasket, remove. And there's the other half of the valve body. This one doesn't have any check ball valves, I don't think, or anything in there. This is simply the back side. I'm going to go ahead and get the backing plate in the back of the valve body all washed up and put away for a bit. Okay, now for the valve body that contains all the magical stuffs in it. We got a couple springs we gotta take out and check ball valves before we actually pull this thing apart. This is your converter pressure relief spring. You can take that out, you'll have a cup that goes with it, as well as a spring. Set that aside. We got another spring here. Then you'll have a throttle pressure relief ball valve, or ball and spring. There's our spring. And my ball actually fell down. I have to retrieve it here. There we go. There's the check wall for the throttle return spring. They just go together hand in hand like that. Set those aside. Now the C6s, there should be 2 or 3 check ball valves. I think there's at least 2 of them. There's one. And there's another one here. Well, okay. Yes, there's only 2 check valves to worry about. I'll go ahead and start on this side and remove this valve right here. Just a little roll pin, nothing special. Alright. Roll pin is out, so now you can just scoop this guy all the way out. Next, we're going to take out the downshift valve retainer. This clip. This clip is down there, you can't just grab it out, but if you turn it to the side, you can actually fiddle with it and get it to raise up. Make sure you cover your port with a hole on it. I'm just going to go in there and I'm just flicking up the retainer clip so we can snatch it from above. As you can see now, that retainer clip has come out. I just press and hold it a little bit. And then you simply pull it out. What I would do is I would cover both the valve side and the hole side just to make sure that spring doesn't go out. Because when you undo that clip, there's going to be a spring that's going to fly out of this hole. So make sure before you remove the clip, put your thumb over that. Remove the clip. Or take out your spring first. Whichever one comes easier. And the valve should walk out without much fuss. Then you can go ahead now you can go ahead and push your valve out. Valve comes out through that hole. Just like that. And we'll have another retainer clip on this side. Push this one in a little bit and pull your clip. That's right here. Make sure you don't lose it. It is it is very small. There we go. If this doesn't want to come out, simply start rocking it up and down and it'll eventually work itself out. This is your pressure boost valve. And then the main valve, where there's a cup that goes on top of the spring. Then your valve. All I'm doing is just gently pushing it out. Never force anything on these valve bodies. These are very finely precision machined parts. And there we go. There's the other part of the valve. Okay, that bore's clean and checked out. Now we need to undo all of our retaining plate, I guess you might call it. We'll do our throttle boost plate first. Hold pressure on it. Okay, retainer plate is off. Valve here. Spring here. Then another spring on the other side, on the small side, right here. That comes off. And there'll be another valve in here, like that. Okay. I believe those two passages are now cleared. Now for the big one here. Do take note that those 8 bolts, they are a different size and they go in the specific holes. I have a diagram over here that tells me where they are. So we're just going to be lazy to zap this out. And we'll go ahead and start down the bottom and work our way up. Okay. I think our valve body is completely empty. But before you shake it around and start cleaning it up, just look at every hole, make sure there's nothing in it. Yep. There you go. One valve body. I'm gonna go ahead and take this to the, put this through the wash. I'll be right back. I've got the valve body all cleaned up, ready to go. The components are still dirty, but I'm just going to simply clean them off with brake cleaner before I put them in there, so I don't have to go back and forth and risk of losing parts. And if you're wondering, my references, I got all of the book here, my service manual, as well as the shift kit. Just to let you guys know, I'm not doing this by memory whatsoever. These are my reference points. Factory, and then the shift kit will be the aftermarket bit, which is all labeled out very nicely. First one says to put a spring in our very first one. But it also says use no spring here for heavy duty truck or mild upgrades. Well, this truck is most definitely a heavy duty, so we're just going to clean that up and put that in. That stays factory. Alright, first one is in. Coasting. Coasting valve does not require anything, so I'm just going to go ahead and clean it up and put it back in. Yes. Okay. 3. The 1-2 shift. We'll be replacing this spring with a different color. I like colors. There is indeed a white spring in here we need to get to. This is the old spring here. Go ahead and pitch it. And place it with the white one. Thusly. Go ahead and clean up our valves right quick. A new white spring in there. It actuates good, feels good in the bore, so we know we got everything in theory right. Okay, next we're working on the 2-3 upshift. We got valve, spring, and our TMV valve. 76 and earlier, use new brown spring. 77 later, which would be us, we need to use the new blue spring. We do have a blue spring here. There is our new blue spring for this circuit. Clean up old hardware and get rid of the old spring. Old spring out. TMV valve goes in first. Actually, what we'll do is our similar valvage here. Just going like that. Go ahead and put it in the hole. Again, don't force these valves in. They should go in with just a little bit of persuasion. There we go. Okay. That feels good. 2-3 backup valve. We're simply reusing that. If equipped, we're not equipped there, so nothing changes there. No changes there, so I'll clean and re-put that back in. So now for our accumulator here, we're replacing all of these springs with a single spring. That's the upgrade for it. Directions say we replace all the springs with this new plain spring. It is okay to install on either side. No, all right. There we go. And that accumulator valve's a tight fit. And it says put it on either side, so let's put the spring on there just for funsies. The last is the servo valve here. And we reuse old spring, but we use new servo valve. Alright. Aren't we having a fun time? Someday this project's gonna get done. Alright. New servo valve in. With old stock spring. And there you be. Well, at least for that was step one. We'll go ahead and put our backing plate on. I know it looks dirty. I put it through the solvent tank, but this transmission had a few droplets of water in there and it stained the steel, unfortunately. But that's alright. It'll be fine. Make sure nothing's bound up. Be a little bit tricky. You're finding quite a few springs. Pay attention to the length of your bolts. No. And that bolt is only screwed in because I'm holding it all the way flush. I'm not binding it. Don't use these bolts to pull everything down. That means you're going to strip something out and break it. Just go nice and easy. You'll be alright. Again, the plate moves nicely, flush, so I know nothing is bound up. So you notice I didn't zip these down that hard. They're just barely loose in there. These got to be torqued to very specific inch-pounds, which will deal with that when we're done assembling everything else. For our low schedule valve, keep valve and replace the old spring with a very, well, there's definitely a smaller orange spring. That goes in like lessly thereof. We'll go ahead and put the valve in right there. Pop the spring in there. Next we'll put our throttle boost in. That will be all stock components. We will put spring in first. Closer, there we go. And the throttle boost valve in next. Action seems good. Alright. We'll put our detent valve in next with stock spring and stock valve. That'd be that little bugger right there. So your valve goes first. Then put the spring in next. Then push the spring down with a punch I'm going to use and put the clip right behind it. Okay. Just like that. Excellent. Next we'll go ahead and put our manual valve in. Let's see here. Put your roll pin back in. Now it's locked in, not going to go anywhere. Pressure regulator. Same valve. And it goes. Maybe. Really. And then you put the seat in like this. Bigger end down. That rides against the pressure regulator valve. So I'm going to drop it in here without hurting myself. Nope, I'm going to try that again. Oh, come on. Really? There. There you go. And the seat's on there now. New blue spring. We do have one new blue spring. New blue spring for the kit going in. And then if equipped for reuse. Yes. We do have a secondary spring that we did pull out. And it does say to reuse it if it is equipped, and it is so equipped. Put it in there. Alright. That goes on the end of the spring. Thusly. Okay. So it might be a little bit tricky. Alright, push that in all the way. Clip in here. There we go. Alright, springs and check balls are next. Okay, reverse check ball down there. And another check ball. Should go right there. Next step, we're quasi done with this part. Instructions say I gotta drill out a hole right here with the drill bit size provided. I now have my hole drilled out. I deburred it and then I ran it through the parts washer or solvent tank. Now that it's clean, I set some new matting down here so I don't have to worry about the metal shavings, and we'll go ahead and throw this valve body assembly back together. Alright. Channel casing, gasket, and steel plate. Now we'll go ahead and put the channel and the valve body back together. Make sure your springs and your ball here are properly seated when you bolt this down. Okay, looks like they are clamped down. We'll temporarily put these two in here. Make sure everything stays put. And apparently I'm not aligned. And we got those tightened. Then you can remove these temporary ones. I love these instructions. So I'm going to tighten those 3 bolts below where the screen goes. Check out what that says. Grab an inch-pound torque wrench and use torque specs on previous page if you're a big gorilla. Now that's awesome. That's awesome. And here are your torque specs. Now we'll go put the pickup screen on. We'll use our tapered punch to keep everything aligned while we tighten them down. And that is exactly 30 inch-pounds. I think the last one's the reinforcement plate here. And there you go. One rebuilt valve body with an upgraded shift kit. Excellent. Are we missing any bolts? Looks like we don't have any leftover bolts, nuts, or springs, washers, etc. Okay, good. Before we put the valve body on, I forgot, we got to put our vacuum accumulator on here. Wow, much loudness. Now to install the valve body itself, you got your manual kickdown rod. The end of that rides on your manual rod down here, and your parking or your gear selector switch will ride in that little groove right there. I'm just going to go ahead and torque all of my bolts to 45 foot-pounds. So before you button things up, make sure your linkage is all nice and freed. And our kickdown lever. Excellent. And now for the oil pan. I'm going to go ahead and put the old one back on. We're not going to use it. The new one I'm going to order will have a drain plug and bigger capacity, and it's going to be aluminum instead of stamped steel. But in order to get this thing off the stand and skid this thing around when we line it up to the engine when we're ready to go, I don't mind dinging this thing up at all. So basically I'm just going to use it as a skid plate. Well, thank you everybody for watching. This concludes the C6 transmission rebuild on the Ford service truck for the channel. If you watch it all the way through, then give yourself a gold star, high five, pat on the back, or possibly a mental health check. We really want to know if this transmission will work properly or not until I get the 460 refurbished and bolted back up and put inside the truck, which will probably be another month or two. This was not built on a weekend. This took me probably about a month and a half due to parts I forgot and just general silliness that I ran into. Hope you guys had fun with it. Thank you for watching. We'll see you all later. I'm off to record the next something. So you see we got springs on evenly distributed out. So you can see we got our springs distributed every. You have it on backwards. Oh. Next we'll go ahead and put our parking gear on. Remember your bushing first. Bushing. A word of advice. Yes. Before we put the valve body. This will be your throttle pressure relief ball valve or relief spring and okay. Your manual kickdown lever that rides on this spring. Whatever. And of course your kickdown lever. Good spring action in there. Whoa. Well, why isn't that Planetary dropping all the way down like it's supposed to? now that we have the low/reverse clutch, low hub. What the heck's that called? Low reverse clutch hub. Should also come with new friction. No, these are steels, not friction. Nerd.